Hello, welcome back to my channel. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm gonna give you a little update here. Haven't done one of these in a couple months, so I think we're due, especially with what's going on right now here in April. We'll talk about it. So today is Monday, April 11th. It's about 2 p.m., a little after 2 p.m. where I am on the West Coast. And if you notice, the chart in front of us today is a little different. I'm not using planetwatcher.com. That's a great site, nice, easy to navigate to, point out when different planetary configurations are happening and jumping from one to the next. It's a little clunkier, but Planet Watcher is down at the moment. And so this is another one called AstroSeq. It's pretty good site. I'd recommend it. I got my own account. You can see my little symbol here. What's really cool about this site is that you can actually find out who is on here that not only has your same birthday, but was born the exact same year and day. So there's 13 people on here born the exact same day I was, which is interesting. So if you're into that, but anyway, gives us the information we need. So it'll work. It's just a little clunkier when it gets to moving around. You'll see, but it'll suffice for what we need to do. So the last time I did one of these was probably just before Ukraine got invaded by Russia, I believe. It was kind of leading up to that. And we were talking about some of the energies here as we headed toward the springtime. And so now here we are in the springtime. And I had mentioned at the beginning of the year of the big Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that will actually be exact tomorrow on April 12th. And so you can see that right in here. There's Jupiter right there. There's Neptune. They're both at about 23 degrees Pisces. They're not quite exact yet, but almost there. So tomorrow will be the dates exact. And this is the first conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune in the sign of Pisces since 1856. So it's a pretty rare event, once in a lifetime event, essentially. And it's interesting because Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces, the energy, and Neptune is considered the modern ruler of Pisces. So we kind of have the co-rulers of the sign both in their sign. So this has lots of, the spectrum of potential here is super positive to super negative, right? We're talking about beginnings and endings when it comes to Piscean energy and Jupiter with a tendency to expand on things. So we could be expanding into the infinite wonderfulness or expanding into the kind of the infinite, dread, apparently. So that is kind of the energy. This kind of can go either direction kind of energy. And it's interesting to note that it really has to do with the phrase that comes to mind with this for me is the bubble bursting. And so, whatever image that gives you, but the way I see that is it's sort of information or ideas about the world suddenly being burst. So if you have a certain belief system, suddenly it gets kind of like shown not to be true or valid or, that kind of thing. So it's when an illusion, which is what Neptune rules, can be basically busted open by that, the Jupiter energy. So it's kind of busting open a new paradigm in a lot of ways. And so, this is a energy, it's exact tomorrow, but it's kind of with us here for the next several months to years, really, because it is once in 150 year kind of a configuration. Now, Jupiter and Neptune meet each other once every 13 years or so, but it's not, in other signs. It's just been 150 plus years since it's been in Pisces, the sign that they both rule over or have to be associated with. So it's really interesting. And it's also in an alignment here with the nodes. So the nodes of the moon, that's this little horseshoe thing, that's the north node, and then opposite that is the south node. And so that is pretty close to an exact sextile to the north node and trine to the south node. So which has implications. The nodes have to do with sort of comings and goings, so direction, intentions and direction. So whatever does come out of this energy over the next coming months, it suggests that it is taking the world in a new direction. Okay, and so whatever that may be. So it's pretty exciting here to be at this time. What's also happening with those nodes is, to Saturn right here, about 22 degrees Aquarius, it's forming a square to those nodes, and that's going to be ongoing here for the next week or so. And so this is really a crossroads that on a personal level and on a collective level where we're at is this sort of crossroads where we've got to kind of drop something, drop old habits, drop old ways of being, to really solidify our path forward. And so on a collective level, with the sign of Scorpio and Taurus, and these are the signs associated with like finances and economy, okay? And so we're facing pending food shortages on a global basis, and a lot of that is man-made and man-caused. But the idea being that this is, in order for us to really sustain, we might have some epiphanies here coming up in the coming months, and have to really make some tough decisions about what is going to be something that needs to be left behind, and old habits and things like that, and what we can now apply to the future to get moving. And so we're also in the midst of, again, like if you've watched my previous videos, we're in the midst of the USA Pluto return. There's Pluto right there. So it's just about within a degree still of the USA Pluto, but again, it's going to be with us the entire year of 2022. It's going to be crossing over that exact degree. So the US especially is at a crossroads, especially at a turning point. And I don't think it's too hard to see that at this moment with everything that's going on, not only in the US economy, but in terms of the dollar. So that I think the dollar is something that is really starting to rumble. I think Putin is only accepting rubles, which is their currency for oil, things of that nature. So all of these things are weakening the dollar, and plus with all the inflation that's happened, and so the dollar is kind of maybe on its last leg, to put it bluntly. So that's where the U.S. is kind of facing that in its Pluto return right now. And again, I've mentioned before that a Pluto return really means it's time for a major transformation and a rebirth, or it's time for that death leading the door to new things, essentially. So will it be the destruction of the US? Will it be a rebirth? We don't know. We're in it, and it's has a potential to go both ways. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this Jupiter-Neptune situation, because I mean, like I said, it runs a spectrum from super positive potential to super negative. And it actually lands right on my sun in Pisces at like 22, 23 degrees Pisces. So it's interesting for myself as well, what this is going to, what this can implicate. But wildly, positive possibilities are with us if we want to use them that way. Okay, so it really is a time to just really open our minds and our hearts to new things. Like I said, we're on a path toward the future, but we have to get rid of the past in a certain sense right now. And there's lots of other things going on here that can represent that as well. What we have coming up here, I usually like to talk about eclipses and retrogrades, and so we got that coming up here too, here in late April, early May. And before that happens, we'll have a full moon next week. So there's the moon right there, it's in Leo. But when it gets over here and it's opposing that sun, that's going to be on the 16th. So we're only about 5 days away from that. I think it's on Saturday, coming up. So we get that full moon, and then the next two lunations after that, 2 weeks later, and then 2 weeks after that will be eclipses. So we are actually going to have, I believe, the first eclipse is on the 30th, and we can roll up to the 30th. This is where it gets clunky, okay? So I can go up a day, but it's not as quick, So now we're on the 15th, 16th. So I'm going to go all the way to the 30th when we get there, and we'll see that eclipse. Okay, so there it is. There's the sun and moon. So it's going to be a solar eclipse. Okay, so and it's going to be conjunct the north node. So the eclipses are always either conjunct to north or south. So the next eclipse will be conjunct to south node, and it's conjunct Uranus and Taurus. So we got this energy here, and that is going to be in a sextile to Mars, pretty close sextile to Mars in Pisces. And so there's, I just mentioned the dollar and mentioned the economy and things like that. When I look at these both eclipses here, it kind of really resonates with that energy of, some things being revealed, some revelations in the economy, and having to respond to that kind of energy. And with Uranus there, this is the planet of surprise, unexpected kind of things. This could also be a sudden birth of, you know, a new financial system. So we, you know, crypto is right, you know, on the horizon here. And there's already talk about digital currencies and things like that. So could this be, you know, could part of the epiphanies that come from the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction here make us, you know, realize that we've got to do things differently financially, and you know, this could be the sudden birth of new systems, things like that. So that's, you know, interesting in itself. The next eclipse will be, I believe, in mid-May, but actually before we get there, what's also going to be happening around late April to early May is you got Jupiter here at about 27 degrees Pisces, and it is going to be in a sextile to Pluto. So it'll be exact, I think, in early May, but last couple of days of April through the first week of May, Jupiter sextile Pluto. And that's a very potent potential, like large amounts of growth that energy is associated with. So there could be a lot of positives that come out of this, let's put it that way. So, you know, I mentioned negative possibilities here, but a lot of positive could come out of this next series of eclipses with regards to growth. And, you know, and so that really coincides with the idea of letting go the old habits, the old ways, and things like that. Okay, so it's also interesting that Venus will be with Jupiter right there, right during, you know, at the midst of this eclipse on the 30th here coming up. So that's going to be going on to kind of transition us kind of in between the eclipses. So this kind of starts right before this eclipse and it'll end just before the next eclipse. Okay, and then we're also going to have Mercury going retrograde here just before. So I think that's going to be on the 10th. Yeah. So we're going to go a few more days in the future here, get to May 10th. And on that day, a couple things happen. So Jupiter, right as it finishes that sextile to Pluto, you can see right here, it's at 29 degrees, but we'll put it one more day just to get it. There we go. Jupiter is actually going to enter Aries. Okay, so it'll be back in Pisces late October to late December, but from here in early May through late October, it's going to be in Aries. And so Aries is that, you know, first sign of the zodiac. It's where it's a lot of energy, you know, high energy, fiery. And so, you know, being in the midst of kind of a warring time right now, that's, you know, a little precarious there because things can kind of unload and explode and things like that. But that's going to be happening on the same day that Mercury goes retrograde. So Mercury's going to be right there at 4 degrees Gemini, and that's when it'll start its retrograde. And it's going to retrograde back to, I believe, like 26 degrees Taurus. And that'll be on June 3rd, it'll go direct. But before that happens, so essentially this is happening in between the two eclipses. So April 30th eclipse, that's that eclipse that was up here with Uranus. And then as that's happening, Jupiter is sextiling Pluto, then Jupiter breaks from that sextile and enters Aries just as Mercury goes retrograde here on May 10th. And then we go a few more days in the future to the next eclipse. And I think that is on the 15th or 16th, something like that. Yeah, it's going to be right around there. You can go a few hours in the future. Where is it? That's close enough. So this is about, yeah, May 15th-ish. So there's the sun at 25 degrees Taurus. There's Scorpio at 24 degrees. Let me show you, there's the moon at 24 degrees Scorpio. And so that's roughly opposite, within a degree of opposite. And what that's doing is a very strong square to Saturn and Aquarius. That same, you know, Saturn that is squaring the nodes right now that I mentioned. So it makes sense that it's going to, this eclipse is going to highlight that square to the nodes. And that's, again, that energy of having to leave something behind and move forward. And that's also what we see here with a lunar eclipse on the south node. That's a real indicator of release, letting go, making room. Okay. And so that's really what this next eclipse series is about, is kind of letting go, making room, and then, you know, taking new steps toward potentially innovative new ways of stability and security, etc. So it has huge implications for, you know, economics and money in general. But yeah, So that's going to be pretty strong there. It's also supported by the Pluto, as well as Mars and Neptune here. Okay, so lots of Pisces energy in both of these eclipses. They're both connected to what's happening in Pisces, and we have the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces. And so Pisces is always the most unpredictable kind of energy because it kind of represents everything and nothing. You know, it's everything that is and isn't. So it's like the well from which all life comes from and then goes back into. So it really is that the sky's the limit for potentialities here, and we can kind of take it either direction we want, which is nice, but that also kind of makes it hard to focus. Okay, and that's why Pisces gets the reputation for lack of focus. And anyway, so that's the crux of what's going on here, coming up in the next month or two. So that that leads us right up until, if we can actually go into, I'll go a couple more weeks ahead, get to where Mercury turns direct, because that'll kind of encompass the time period that we're looking at here. So right around there, June 3rd, that's when Mercury is going to be, where is it? Right there. Mercury's at 26 Taurus, and it'll start heading forward again. Okay, so just to kind of recap, we've got the Jupiter-Neptune in Pisces conjunction right now. Okay, but again, that lingers and stays with us for a while. April 30th, we're going to have the solar eclipse right on Uranus, right on the North Node. Okay, so that's kind of like new beginnings, new path forward. Okay, kind of energy. And as that's happening, you've got Jupiter sextile Pluto, very strong growth energy, like I said, and that breaks and Jupiter enters Aries. So it's going to be a shift in the energy. So innovation is the kind of, expansion of innovation is really the key phrase there. And then on that same day that Jupiter is entering Aries, that's when Mercury goes retrograde, and it's at 4 degrees Gemini, and it'll back into Taurus. And so on May 15th, we get that lunar eclipse that's going to square Saturn pretty harshly and highlight that crossroads energy again. And that's again supported by both Pluto and the Mars and Neptune conjunction in Pisces. Whereas the first eclipse, you have Venus conjunct Jupiter in Pisces. So there's again the strong Pisces energy in both eclipses, etc. And then you get past that, a couple weeks after that lunar eclipse, and Mercury's going to go direct. And so there's definitely a time of shifting and changing here, late April through May. Okay, and so with Jupiter entering Aries, some of these shifts could be quick and sudden and take us by surprise. Okay, so that's another big part of the energy here. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, I apologize for the new system here. It's a little clunkier. Like I said, it takes a little bit more maneuvering through it to get things to work, but it did the job. And I'm happy to look at your chart if you're interested in what this, where this is, landing in your chart, what it all means, where this crossroads is, etc. Where this energy is for you. Happy to go over your chart, do a natal chart reading. And if you've seen my previous videos on the Creating Compatibility series, that's something where I can work with you and a partner, you and a group, and we can really work out where the opportunities lie for creating compatibility based on astrological information. So again, Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony, and always happy to hear your comments on YouTube. And please watch and share with anyone that you think would appreciate this. Thanks again. Bye.